All right. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Showverse. And today I have a couple very special guests. I have the directors and co-writers, as well as one of the stars of the upcoming family drama slash comedy, Unbillievable, Scott Rubin and J. Garrett Vorreuter. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Yeah, we're happy to be
Hey,
here.
Now, this movie kind of caught me by surprise, simply because I'm not one for sports, but I did definitely grow up around that sort of environment where I would go to the Rose Bowl, I think 2 or 3 times a month with my family, and they were all decked out in Bruins gear. So to watch a movie about that encapsulation of just uh, a religiously dedicated experience to a sports team. One brought me back, but two was also really unique to watch unfold because we rarely actually get movies like this. We usually see it in subplots of certain movies. Silver Linings Playbook definitely comes to mind. Um, but oh, and for those of you that don't know, Unbelievable is the story of a large family get together over in Buffalo, New York, as the Buffalo Bills find themselves in the Super Bowl while shenanigans ensue. Now, right off the back, this will be a question for the both of you. Where did this idea come from? Scott, I'll have you start.
well, it's interesting because it's not really related, but Garrett and I somehow found ourselves back in Buffalo. I grew up here. Garrett grew up about an hour away, and we had made a film earlier, and I spent 30 years in Los Angeles, and Garrett was in Los Angeles as a filmmaker as well. And then suddenly we were back during COVID, back in Buffalo. My wife and I decided to just move back, because LA had kind of closed down and kind of became like apocalyptic, and and Garrett was as well. And I still don't even know how you ended up back in Buffalo, but you did. And we were like in a room talking one night. We just said, hey, like we got to get back to work. We got to do something. And let's got to make a movie. Who cares what happens? How much it costs? I mean, if we don't do something, we're gonna just die. And we realized, all right, we're in Buffalo. Okay, this is some of the greatest stuff to look at. It's like walking around in a museum from the Gilded Age, and then the old everything's just old and but hanging on somehow. And it's so visually interesting. So we just decided, like, well, what really is like the defining thing in this city? And within seconds, we went our obsession with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, the entire city is obsessed with this team. And I think it's because we never won the big one. And the history of the city in all major sports. In 125 years, the Buffaloes had franchise, Major League Baseball. We've never won an undisputed world championship. And it defines the city and the mentality. So I never gave up on the Bills out in LA. And I started watching. I brought my family into the experience they went 17 years without making the playoffs. And then when I came back, I started watching with my brother's family, and I hadn't watched the games for like 30 years with my brother, and everybody had become collectively insane over those 3 decades because they were still following a team that could never quite win. And they had all these rituals and superstitions. So Garrett and I thought, like, yeah, we got to do a movie about what it's really like to be like the average Buffalo person watching the game with his family, not necessarily the crazies that go the tailgates, at the stadium, which is a whole other experience and kind of an extension of it. But the average person meeting up like during the season, having his family get together, the little watch party, and what they eat, where they sit, what they do, how they root. It's generational. And that's what we did. I sat down and I kind of based it loosely on my brother's family, writing the script, and then Garrett and I worked out the story together, and we made this movie. I'll shut up now.
Oh, please, please.
No,
The more the merrier. But sorry, moving over, Garrett, what do you have to say about that?
so yeah, I think I've been working with Scott now for about 10 years, not on every project, but on my feature films, I've done them with Scott, right? Because it's just a huge effort. It's super hard. Everybody runs away by the end of it, So like with having a great partner really goes a long way when it comes to that in the independent film world. But when I first met him, he had just been working on a documentary about breaking the curse of the Bills, and he had in the course of our first feature film, he had lost the hard drives of the movie, so he wasn't able to finish it. And I don't remember exactly how we decided, but we decided to weave that real storyline of this person trying to break the curse of the Bills with a documentary into the movie. And it just became another layer that was very real to Scott's true experience as a Bills fan. And it actually became very quickly in the scripting part, my favorite element of it, right? Because it made it like this weird kind of meta thing. And the movie is real. Like, yeah, it's a fictional movie, but it's real. I mean, this is a real experience that people have. I can't tell you how many people we've met at screenings. The movie's screened, here, Los Angeles, all over the place. And we meet people. I mean, white, black, Indian. We've met an Indian guy who said, I've never felt more seen in my entire life than I did watching this movie. Right. And as filmmakers, I think that's like one of the goals is to make stuff that people can see themselves in, right? Maybe not, specifically them, like especially for people that make those like sci-fi horror films, but elements of that, right? Like the human condition. And, the movie is a great tribute to the human condition, especially for those people living in Buffalo that, by nature of being a Bills fan, it's like being stuck in an abusive relationship. You can't stop loving them, but man, have they hurt you.
Okay. One, thank you for bringing up that part because I was going to ask about that specific subplot about the documentary, but you answered it for me. Um, and we you discussed, both of you actually discussed about it feeling real. You said, this is something you see at tailgates. Scott mentioned that these were elements that, he saw within his brother's family. And honestly, I can't help but praise you guys because you know, despite this film feeling very, very indie, what I will say is that it does feel very real. And you have characters bickering. You do have those superstitions, those curses. That's like, well, no, I have to say it first because that's me. Then you guys chime in, and then I finish it off. Because if you don't, then that's not going to work. And I have been to plenty of Super Bowl parties where one small move, everyone just gives you like a death glare, like you're not supposed to do that, and you're like, well, what's going on? So moving along that, line of thinking, you essentially have this collective cast of characters, which is already difficult to juggle as it is. But one thing that really stuck out is that every person felt real. It felt like, every single character knew each other for eons. So I am wondering, what did you guys do to get that natural sense of chemistry? Because I mean, I'm guessing, where is it like? Was it along the lines of you guys had friends that you're like, hey, we're making a movie about Bill's friends, I'm in? Or was it you got all these actors that you found on like Backstage or Entertainment's Access, and then you guys spent weeks just meticulously rehearsing these lines of dialogue? And for and
There's no rehearsals.
there's no
This
rehearsal.
is an indie film,
I
but Scott, why don't you jump in here? Because you do have some people that join the cast that are more than friends. They're like family to you.
It's interesting about the rehearsal because remember we had the rehearsal 3 weeks, and you strive for all that stuff, and then when you start making the movie and you have almost no money, you can't get everybody together, and so maybe there was one day, very intense day, that we all talked about the movie and the role and everything. And since these were mostly local actors, they connected to the movie. Maybe it was easier for them possibly to get there, in this obsessed mode, or like they knew somebody that was kind of like the odd man out as well. So it was easy for them to they knew the language that we were talking about when we would try to give them direction, because they were living it in their own lives, most of the cast. And I think that played a big role in why it felt real, because it just fit them. But we auditioned, local actors, and there's only two actors, right? Chris Chisholm plays my older brother, who I went to college with, and Mel Gorham, who was kind of a star in the 90s, who I went to college with as well. And they knew the obsession of the Bills that I had, because I stayed friends with them from the time we graduated. So it was pretty easy for them to kind of grasp the whole thing as well. So, but, it's not just Bills fans. Like Christopher Chisholm, he's obsessed. He was obsessed with various sports teams over his life. Mel, I don't think ever. She's become a Bills fan, a crazy Bills fan now. But I don't know if she ever went there. But her character is kind of angry at me, her husband, for being so obsessed. So she didn't really have to fully put on those gloves, if I could use an O.J. Simpson glove for.
Oh.
Yeah, it's bad.
Wow.
I'm not gonna lie. When they brought the whole O.J. Simpson bit in the movie, I went the same moment everyone else did. I'm just like, oh, that's a very sort of natural moment that clearly stood out among the rest. Um, I'm, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's funny to laugh along with the people making the movie, because you could tell that it was just that ingrained into the whole, I guess, soul of the movie. But moving along, we mentioned that, well, rather you mentioned this is an indie film that was shot with basically no money. And if there's one thing that's already difficult about shooting a movie with no money, it's getting everyone together on, days that they clearly have jobs, or they have family obligations that need to be taken care of or attended to. Um, but what really got me is, usually for situations like this, there's a lot of singles, and there's a lot of people that usually stand hold on, pardon me, but stand this close to the edge of the frame so that they're right here. And it's like, oh, they're still in the shot, but they're cut off. And meanwhile, it's just someone filling in. But what I thought was really cool is you had a lot of shots of a lot of people in frame. And it's not just oh, we had two people. No, you sometimes had four or five people in frame at a single time. And for some average viewer, that might not seem like a big deal. But for those of us that have
Yeah.
struggled just to get two people on set over the course of a single day, that is a massive achievement. So, one, props to you two for achieving that, because I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been. But on continuing on that line of questioning, how were you able to achieve something like that? I mean,
So it's a large ensemble cast,
yeah,
right? Which always makes things hugely difficult with scheduling, right? So, scheduling always a nightmare, but we had one major location, which, fortunately for us, Scott owned it. That was his house, right? So we were able to build with that. And then, if you've done enough indie film, if you've done any film, you know how every time the camera moves, the lights move, everything, right? There's stands on set. Well, we decided that we wanted to shoot with more than one camera. It was a multi-camera shoot.
Hmm.
And two, we actually rigged all the lights to the ceiling. So we were able to get these large, light mats. Light Gear, was the company that made them, and we're able to build a microgrid on the ceiling. So there wasn't a single light stand on set. You know, and that it really enabled us, especially without having the time to do all like the kind of blocking rehearsals you'd like to do ahead of shooting. We were able to use the freedom that we did have, albeit through a ton of people still, to get the blocking down the way that was going to work for us, to be able to maximize the frames as much as we could within a small space. I mean, that's a small house. It actually photographed bigger than it is. And and that, especially for comedy, which Scott can speak on this even more so, like comedy's hard, right? It's we often joke how comedy and horror aren't so different, right? Because you have to set up the pacing and expectations with what you're doing. But having the lights up on the ceiling and not having to move the lights around, that helped. And then we also enveloped Scott's house. We built, so we could shoot night during the day. So we built like a shell around his house to do the lighting through the windows, so it looked like night, even though we were shooting in the day. So scheduling wise, that helped too.
And before I go any further, I think props should go to your DP, who, if I'm correct, Scotty Franklin was the DP for Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
who actually has had work in camera and electrical in films like Nightmare Alley, Quiet Place Part Two, A Man Called Otto,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
We were
mean,
able to do so. We were able to design the lighting plan with him going into it, and that made a big difference. Scotty was injured during the movie, so he couldn't do too much once we got started. I mean, he hurt himself on his own accord. I don't exactly remember exactly what happened, but he had to sit behind a monitor for the most part. But that wasn't the end of the world because, like I said, we had it all rigged up. So props to him, but props also to the grip and rigging team, who not only put it all up, but then would take it down when needed to at the end of the day, so people could move about, get in and out of the house. They nearly did start one fire. Okay, I don't want to
That
dismiss
was
that, but
smoke burning. Yeah. Okay, so just what's that smell on the set is never good. I smell smoke, and then oh my god, yeah. But we
but
survived.
but it really did help us with the comedy and with having to make choices as we were working, and it especially for Scott, who, like, it's hard enough directing and producing a movie, but when you're acting in it as well, it's a hugely difficult job. And Scott, you really did do a great job, you know, mitigating all this stuff, and you're the one that smelled the fire.
Yeah, unfortunately, I
I,
yeah.
I
Another thing, there was we had a producer, Greg Lamberson, who has done a lot of indie films locally here, and he was very good with the scheduling of those actors, and that had to be buttoned up, and that was buttoned up in the movie. So that, and you really nailed it. That really was one of the most challenging parts of shooting this movie was was that aspect. There was only a couple of times where people, it was the out of town people that really, remember, they were leaving, and we had and Chiz was leaving, and oh my God, what are we going to do? All right, let's just get you do what you can, and we did get a couple of singles on him that really needed like three other people theoretically, but we got away with it because we didn't do that too often, like you noted, no. Um,
and
uh,
actually,
Noah? Oh, there you are. Okay.
my apologies. But actually, I wanted to go and piggyback off of what Garrett said earlier, because I mean, then again, in the indie world, no one who makes movies is stranger from pulling double, triple, quadruple duty. You know, sometimes you're your own cameraman, sometimes you're your own director, producer, actor, editor, yada yada yada, all the nine yards. But Scott, for you in particular, you not only developed the story and wrote it, you also co-directed it with Garrett. You also partially produced it, and you also acted in it. So, on top of all these other moving parts, with it shooting in your house, it being a very personable story, what was that like having to juggle just all of these roles for a movie like this?
Well, possible.
Hold on,
I
sorry,
don't know
sorry,
how we.
Scott, sorry, you cut out for a second. We could not hear you. Could you start over again? Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I would say it's it's seemingly nearly impossible if it's that difficult, um, especially when you're acting in it. That the acting, like I don't understand how Woody Allen does it. Like if you Annie Hall, Dan Keaton just passed away, and you think of Annie Hall, and he's in the movie, he's almost in seemingly every scene, right? And he's got to know where the camera is. And thankfully, I had a partner who knew where to put the camera, and we had worked before, so you have to rely. For me, I had to rely a lot more than what you would normally do directing a movie on your partner to make sure that we're think about it, we're all in this room. We don't know where is the camera. There's like 12 people in the room. Like you've got like just like 2 weeks to shoot this whole thing. Where are you gonna place it? Have we got? And then you can't show half the house because that would be the TV. You can't show the TV only a couple of times, right? Because then you need clips from the NFL, and you're never going to get them. And that would be, one clip would be the entire budget of the movie. And, I mean, so you have such a little space, and who's remembering? Yeah, you have a script supervisor and all that. There's no script supervisor on earth that could remember, like, where 12 people in this little room were standing. It would take 10 script supervisors. So you're just like hoping that, Garrett and one of the actors, like, no, I said that over in the kitchen. No, all right, everybody calm down, and then the clock's ticking, and you only have, it's utter madness, okay? It's utter madness. And when we were done, and Garrett, everybody thought that how are they ever going to put this movie together? The camera was all, but it was because we had thought it through initially, and we said the best we can do with this is to shoot it more like a TV show, in that, like, where it's lit, the whole, the whole set is lit. We don't have to go and focus on performance. And, what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses? Well, the weaknesses are, if we had to do like, crazy setups, move the lights every shot, we'd have never been able to pull it off with that many people. So we had to shoot it more, yes, it's cinematic, and yes, it's all that stuff, but we had to shoot it like it was a stage play almost. But the actors weren't rehearsed for a stage play. A stage play, everybody knows their lines, right? And everybody knows where it's all blocked out. Well, we're blocking this thing out while we're shooting it, because there's no rehearsal. It's literally, I ended up upstairs is where all the actors were hanging out, and and the crew and everything, and then downstairs is where he shot it. And the costumes are up there and everything. And I remember one day I went up, and Mel, who plays my wife, she had a room up there because that's where we put her to stay too. They were sleeping over, some of the actors. And I walked in and I said, Mel, I can't take it anymore. And I went into the closet of the bedroom and locked myself in and had a panic attack. And then everybody came into the bedroom and started knocking. You could do it. We have to finish. I know. Just give me another 30 seconds and let it work through. And I'm claustrophobic. I was in a tight little closet. This really happened. We got out. Mel talked me out of there. I went back down, and everybody's betting on me. He's never going to make it. Like when we, you know, but if your will and your passion are strong enough, and we're very passionate about this and still are, the process is a long process. There's the marketing process, as well. There's raising money. There's a lot of moving parts to making a movie. But if you're passionate, you believe in something, deeply, it keeps you're able to kind of take a lot. I mean, it's amazing what human beings can handle. Barely, but they can handle it. And this was one of those experiences, like managing all those people and all those actors and blocking it and trying to understand where we are in the script and then trying to memorize your own lines. Everybody thinks, oh, well, he wrote it, he knows the line. No, I have to remember the lines too. I remember the lines.
Did we lose him?
Oh, hold on, Scott, oh no, Scott, his appears his audio cut out for a second. But sorry, Scott, not backpedaling, but going back a little bit. We last heard from you was you think just because I wrote it you think that means I know my lines, and then you just said no. So continue on from there.
Yeah, it's incredible that people just assume the actors, the people on the set, they just assume you know your lines. Well, I had the least amount of time to learn my lines. Why? Because I'm one of the producers. I'm one of the directors. It's my home. I am doing travel arrangements and action. Lines. He doesn't know his lines. He wrote the damn thing. He doesn't know his lines. Oh, yeah, I don't know my lines. Why? Take a few seconds here, and okay, I think I got it, and then I don't got it, and thankfully Garrett like totally understood and kept everybody together during those moments. Because think about it, he could have snapped at me too, but he knew what we were up against, and I think he was the only one that understood. All right, we're just gonna have this is part of this movie. Scott's gonna have trouble with his lines, and and then eventually you just let it all go, and you go, all right, if the line's a little off, it's a little off, and I think I could live with this,
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, Garrett, did at any point you snap at Scott and go, "Hey, learn your lines. Come on."
Well, we had already done a movie together, and I forced him to act in the first feature film, and he didn't want to do it, and he ended up playing a key part, and he was my favorite part of that movie. So, and that was tough, and he wrote that one too, and didn't remember his line. So I was already ready for him and his memory. But I always say it's not the words on the piece of paper that matter. It's what's between them. It's why you're saying it. So it's performance. It's whether or not it's real, it feels real. And Scott really was this character on a lot of levels. And so getting real from him wasn't real hard. It was more, to be honest, it was more of the other actors making sure that everybody was in the same world. That was more difficult. So technically on this one, Scott was like, I didn't really have to worry about him. I just had to make sure that, he got enough time to get his performance dialed in, because it's there's only so much time on set, right? And certain people need a little more help here or there, right? And you have to use your time, really wisely. So no, Scott did great. and he knew most of his lines pretty quickly. I mean, coming from the first film to this one, it's like you would have thought he'd been acting for a decade straight. And to be honest, I mean, no, he did a pilot, he did a show in between this, so he'd been working, he'd been acting. So no, he was great. All the actors were great. It was the little things. It was like trying to get people to understand, the tone for sarcasm, which you think everybody knows, but I'll promise you, not everybody does. Which is like, what? Yeah, I just thought everybody got sarcasm, but no, they didn't,
And Garrett's referring to the character who plays my daughter Zoe
No, I'm not. I'm not
in the
referring to
movie.
anybody
No,
in
no,
particular.
no, no. We in the audition process,
Oh yeah, that was
we literally, I think we saw every single actress under 30 in Western New York, Central New York, and we couldn't find anybody. And we just thought that was going to be the easiest one to find because you see on TV all the time the sarcastic young woman like and yet that apparently is a really hard thing to. We both didn't understand it until finally we found Gabrielle, and she was amazing and just oh my god.
I actually want to piggyback on
like
you there. We said we didn't really have much time to rehearse really at all, right? Our literally our rehearsal was our blocking. But when we auditioned people, we really put them through it. And the bits that we chose to audition them with, those ended up being most of their strongest scenes. And I can't overstate this enough. Like we really pushed the people that were auditioning to find things they didn't know were in them. Even if we knew we weren't going to go with them, they came in and they were going to prepare some piece of material. We really pushed them. And I think even the people that didn't get a part were grateful that we did it that way. Because so often it's not like that. It's so often it's you fit the look and they think you can get the lines, but we had to do so much more. Like we had to find a family and we had to find truth. And, we took that very seriously.
Almost as seriously as the overwhelming amount of Bills merch that was scattered around that movie.
No, that was Buffalo merch. Let me
Oh.
be very clear for the record here. Buffalo merch.
My apologies.
In fact, we're not allowed to say
the real
Buffalo and Bills in the same sentence. You can only say Bills or Buffalo.
Oh, right, because the name is trademarked. So, okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
Don't say
it. Right.
There's all sorts of little things like that, dear Lord.
That we had to go through. Before we went into production, Scott and I sat down, and we've watched 2 movies together in our entire life. By accident, we saw Wolf of Wall Street next to each other, only because I sat down next to him in a crowded theater, didn't know it was him. And then we watched Buffalo 66 together just to see how Vincent Gallo got around some of this stuff, and we were shocked at. We both seen the movie, but we were shocked at how poetic it was to the experience of being a Buffalonian, and some of that definitely creeped into the movie.
No, and that's really where I want to throw my praise at you guys because we see so many films these days. Well, not these days, ever. It's all about San Francisco, LA, Manhattan in the big city, or like every film takes place seemingly in like every single major metropolitan area, and very rarely do we actually get films set in the more not necessarily small cities, but like smaller cities. And to see this film be so wholeheartedly Buffalo is where I think the strengths are found within the aspects of this movie. it very much speaks towards a specific crowd, which is people from Buffalo, but it doesn't
But it
alienate you.
doesn't. No, we're both really big fans of the Coen brothers. And if you go back and you look at their catalog, like what they've done so well was capture the voice of people from different places, you know. Obviously Fargo probably comes up to people's mind, right? No
Yeah.
Country for Old Men. Our first feature film was in Niagara Falls, and I'd consider it the best Niagara Falls film ever made. But we've done a really good job of trying to take the cities that our films are set and make them a character, right? We all know New York, you know. Most of us know Los Angeles, and we certainly do through the movies. But a lot more of America could relate to Buffalo than they can to those major metropolitan places. And I would imagine this movie like will find a much broader audience than just Buffalo Bills fans.
And I could
You know,
not.
that's a
Nope,
can
no,
I
go.
comment on that? Yeah, it's interesting because when we were early on in the process, I would show drafts. Garrett and I would go over drafts of what I had just written, and I wrote in like beef on weck, the local cuisines and things like that, and local, like buns and things like, and we had a discussion, like, are we going to alienate? Like, should should we be mentioning this kind of thing, or will people? And then we it did come up. Wow, we really love when movies talk like, and they show like things that the whole idea of movies is take us to places that we haven't been or seen. So
Yeah,
if everybody's always eating the same thing and showing the same thing, at a Bills game, but like these people are obsessed about the bread on beef on weck, you know, well, that's interesting. And that would be interesting to me if I saw that in a movie, even though it was very Buffalo. So there was some thought, that, oh, you're going to alienate everybody with that. And thankfully, Garrett and I thought, no, this is what it is. And we're not lying.
And it's funny you talk about a broader appeal. You see, like I said, I grew up a little bit in that like dedicated religious sports environment. But I think this is where a film like this is different compared to, other films. It's that Buffalo is, in fact, a character in the movie. It might be a side character, but you always feel Buffalo's presence. And as someone who, I sometimes go to the bar, I go a sports bar with my buddies, and there's a certain scene that I won't spoil, but they're just like, "Wait a minute, can we go here? Isn't it kind of like betrayal?" Like, wow, who cares? We need to see the game. And I remember distinctly a conversation I had with my buddies recently, where it's like, "Hey, do you want to go here to watch the game?" It was the Dallas Cowboys and the Packers game that happened recently, and we were talking. We're like, "Hey, should we go to a different bar?" And we all just look at each other and we're like, "Nah, we're going to this one." And so as someone who had the privilege of viewing it, I definitely felt like I was seen and heard just as an average American, um, throughout multiple points in the movie, because it is definitely something I'm sure at least every family can relate to at least once in their whole life. And I definitely have to commend you all for capturing that feeling to almost the letter. But um, moving at least a little bit away from that, there was something Garrett brought up earlier, and you too, Scott, which was the whole 2 week process of shooting essentially an hour and 40-minute movie. Now, fun fact, this film was shot, from what I was able to find, in late 2022, early 2023. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. That is
So
correct. Yeah.
no,
Uh,
sorry.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure how to get rid of that, but hopefully that won't happen again. I got 5 minutes. I'm on the clock here. Yeah. Garrett, you want did is that the time, Garrett? I know we
So
shot
I
it
know
in
we
March
started
or
shooting.
April or March.
We started shooting. Technically, it was like April, right? The snow. We were hoping to keep the snow around, much to everybody's chagrin. Never got any more snow, so we really just had the muddiest of weather. And the movie had to show in front of an audience of like 600 people, like 6 months later. So it was a really quick turnaround. I know that, but roughly
That's in
it was
theaters.
April.
We got in
I'm sorry.
April of 2023, right?
Yeah,
Oh, is it April of 2023?
yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So and we had such a big there's a local old movie palace called the North Park here in Buffalo, and we were we were putting the final touches literally as the people were coming into the theater. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. I was holding the doors so we could get the movie into the projection system, and we didn't know what. Garrett and I were the only ones really to have seen the movie, and we're not even sure we had even seen it as a whole thing.
We definitely
So
hadn't watched it all the way through. We didn't even know if the export worked correctly.
we didn't even know so this is the opening night at the North Park, and hundreds and hundreds of people showed up. It was so exciting. I couldn't handle it. I ran out and got in the fetal position in my car, and Garrett was able to. And I kept peeking across. I was parked across the street from the theater, and I kept peeking across the street to see if anybody's walking out. And I didn't see a single person walk out after like a half hour. And I thought, well, all right. So that first half hour, if they're going to walk out, they're going to walk out during that period. And because the movie really kicks in, like in the middle and towards the end, and really, and they didn't, and then suddenly everybody poured out in all great mood, and it was like a very exciting. It was one of those miracle nights for Garrett and I. Like when you don't
Well, we
know what's
weren't
going to
really
happen.
done with the movie. We got a version that was like it could play, right?
Exactly.
They didn't know. Everybody thought it was like done, but then the movie got picked up by the Regal cinema chain, right?
Yeah, but let me
And
explain that. As a goof, he called our executive producer Eli Honig. He called Regal Cinemas, and they said, "Yeah, we'll look at your movie." We had no distributor, nobody, and they picked it up in the region. They picked it up in Western and Central New York, and it
it
did a
did
little
well.
better than the other movies with zero marketing. I mean, whatever flyers I could make and hand out at the theaters, that was the marketing. So, so here we are at the cusp of the movie finally being available on streaming October 24th on Amazon. We ended up getting a distributor, Buffalo 8, ironically. They're one of the bonded companies, Bonded Media, and it's pretty exciting that we're finally going to share the movie with, the world.
And I honestly could not be happier to do my part and help promoting it because, in all honesty, as I'm probably a broken record here now, I do believe this is a movie that should be seen because it's definitely going to be one of those films that I'm sure everyone can relate to on some level, whether it be something small like a small town feel or some like familiar. And I guess my final questions for the both of you would be uh, what was your favorite part about working on this movie? Scott, I'll have you answer first.
My favorite part was doing a scene. It was the scene of almost the climax of the movie of why we care. It makes me cry just even thinking about it. You know, like you give up because that's how you protect yourself. Oh, I'm never watching these guys again. But in life, that's how it is, you know? Oh, I'm done. I quit, because you can't handle it. And when we shot that scene, it was so moving, and it's still so moving. And I bottomed out my character. I have nothing left. And Jake, who, you know, there's gambling issues, you know, and that's one of the interesting things about the movie is that everybody, I didn't know this when I wrote it, by the way, but everybody is fighting an addiction. My character overeats, my wife drinks too much, the other guys gamble, there's rage issues. I mean, it's fascinating. That was, but it was shooting that scene, you know, why we care, where Jake gives his speech, and to see that come to life was all right, we have to go. Did I lose you? Was very special to me. I'll meet you in there. All right. It was very special to me to see certain things. Oh, I got my beard hair. I hope that doesn't come through. I'm sure it does.
It definitely came through on my side.
No.
Really?
No. We can't tell.
Oh my God. Could someone please? Now she tells me, my wife tells me that. All right. Oh, all right. I just trimmed my beard to go to this event. There's nothing to do with the movie. My sister-in-law. Okay. Out of the temple. Okay, so this is, but it's a Jewish theme day today. You know, the hostage. Okay, so yes, to see a scene that comes together that is special. You know, you got the beard thing.
No. I'm recovering from laughing so hard. I apologize. That's unprofessional. I apologize.
I'm sorry. I had beer clippings on my shirt. Forgive me. To see certain scenes that you've written that like mean a lot to you, and then they're actually realized, like kind of the way you imagined, is really quite special, and it's like a defining thing in life of why we continue and what it takes to really win. You know, to really, if we're, you know, and I don't want to give the movie away, but what he says in that speech, you know, what it really means, you know, and there it is true when you've had a city, a hard luck city that Buffalo is. It's a wonderful place, but we've had a lot of loss, and you know, and it goes on. The movie deals with this, that you only use one. You're always waiting for the other, you know, shoe to fall or foot to fall, whatever that. I can't even remember that line, by the way. An actual cliche, I can't remember. So, yes, to what it means to win, and sometimes to win is not actually winning. It's just caring when you're not supposed to care and you've given up. But you still care because it's who you are, it's what your family is, and what your city is. And that's an important theme, and that's my favorite part, to be able to get that out and see that in the movie.
Oh, that is really moving, Scott. And considering I've seen the movie and I know exactly what scene you're talking about, which by the way, I can't say it because that's a spoiler, but no. That is really moving, and I couldn't be more proud of what it is that scene signifies. But Garrett, moving on to you, what was your favorite? What was your favorite either scene or favorite thing that you worked on in regards to the movie?
They told us before we started the movie that we wouldn't be able to make the movie, and they comes in many forms, many people. many different people. They said we couldn't shoot at the east side of Buffalo. We couldn't shut the streets down when we did. They said we couldn't shoot a large ensemble cast in the amount of days that we had. They said we wouldn't be able to rig the lights up. All that. Then, you know, I loved, the fight of it all. I love the fight of it for being an indie filmmaker. Like there's something very similar to the plight of the Buffalo Bills that I feel as an indie filmmaker, which is, you're constantly the underdog, and even when people think that, you might have a shot, like, there's something that'll come that'll humble you and remind you that you're lucky to be able to do this, and I'm super grateful that I've gotten to make a couple of features, and especially with Scott, and I've gotten to shoot movies, and I get to do this. My favorite part is being able to do this. That's been it.
Oh, look at you. Heart of gold. Absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, cheesy beyond all measures, but at the same time, as someone who has, you know, just struggled to get even a single short across the finish line, a whole feature. And who am I to judge?
It's incredibly humbling to be able to do any of this stuff. It's incredibly humbling to have people come and help you. I mean, most people were paid. Some people refused to get paid, and that's just, it's incredible. And then, Scott, he's become part of my family. So it's like being able to make work with people you consider your family is also incredible. Like, most of the time you don't get to do this stuff. We've got to do 2 feature films as the filmmakers, most people never get to do one, so like I feel like I'm on borrowed time, and I feel very lucky.
Honestly, I share in that sentiment. Right now I'm trying to work just to make 2 shorts, and I last shot a scene back in June. So trying to get everyone together just to execute something as small as 7 minutes is already a challenge. So I have nothing but praise for the both of you. And on that note, Scott, I know you got someplace to be. I will not keep your wife waiting any more than she probably already has. So I'm Noah Pfister with Scott Rubin and Jay Garrett. Oh
Vorreuter.
God.
Vorreuter.
Vorreuter. I apologize.
It's
Like
okay.
I said, for those of you that don't know, don't ever put a name into Google Translate because sometimes it will say it wrong. So Scott Rubin and Jay Garrett Vorreuter, please feel free to check out Unbelievable, releasing October 24th, 2025 on Amazon Prime. Link will be in the description below. Gentlemen, I really thank you for both of your times. Seriously, that has meant the world to me.
Yeah, it
Thank
was
you,
a
Noah.
pleasure.
Hey, no problem. I'm
Thank
Noah
you.
Pfister with Showverse. Thank you very much.